Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from wherever you're joining us, YouTube, LinkedIn. My name is Adeola Olatunji. I'm presenting today's Scale Masterclass, the first of the series this year. If you are new, for our new joiners, the Scale Masterclass is a learning and exchange series hosted by ZER Consulting Africa, where we guide our audience through through questions and issues or topics, leadership related topics, strategy related topics. Now it's scale because scale is the ZER Consulting Africa's proprietary framework for business transformation. And if you're new, if you're one of our the audience if you joined before last year, you know what this is about. We thank you for joining us, both new and old joiners, and we look forward to learning together on this session, as always. So welcome again. I'm Dr. Adeola. I'm your host for today. I'll briefly introduce you to the scale framework, then I'll introduce our guest for today, the business leader we're exchanging with today. And then we have the discussions around that. Feel free to post your questions on whatever platform you're joining us from. And then to close out the session, we take whatever questions you have, and then we close the session and let you know whatever comes next. So ZER Consulting Africa, we're a purpose-driven consultancy. Our mission is to empower African businesses and leaders to help them scale African excellence to the global stage. Why this masterclass? With this masterclass, we want to achieve knowledge sharing, exchange knowledge with business leaders, learn from them, learn from you also, our audience. We hope our intention is that we all take this knowledge that we exchange on this master classes and use them in our business operations, in our business strategy, ultimately helping us all build resilient, scalable African businesses. So now, why me? Why am I hosting this? And why should you listen to me? Well, I've been a business consultant for a number of years, over 7 years, 10 years thereabout. I've managed all shades of projects, working with corporate leaders across different industries, but mostly focusing on health and insurance in different countries. And I'm an Afro optimist. So I think that qualifies me to lead this exchange. Now, what's the ZER Scale framework? The ZER Scale framework is our adaptable five-step roadmap to business transformation. This is a proprietary framework developed by ZER Consulting Africa, and using this framework, we African businesses are empowered to turn their business visions into reality. Afro optimism, you've heard me mention Afro optimism before. Afro optimism is the philosophy that drives how we build, lead, and scale with intention and pride, focusing on African leaders or the African business context. The scale, if we go forward, the scale is an acronym that captures this five themes. Stands for strategize your vision. C for champion excellence. A for accelerate exceptional leadership. L stands for leverage governance for sustainable growth. And E stands for expand your impact via growth capital. In today's discussion, we are going to focus on strategizing your vision. And we'll be discussing with a fintech business leader on how they strategize the vision, all the what internal process steps they take, what they have learned, and what they are still learning in this process of strategizing their vision. So now, um, I'll introduce our guest. I'll introduce him briefly, and then I'll allow him introduce himself. And from there, we flow into the discussion. Our guest today is Dr. Dumebi. He's the CEO of iziFIN. iziFIN is a fintech solutions provider based in Nigeria. Um, based in Nigeria, and they have an easy suite of solutions focusing on financial empowerment and making the financial engagement and customer interactions easier for uh, for for their customers. They have a suite of solutions that I would leave Dr. Dumebi to introduce to you. And from his introduction, we flow into addressing the strategy questions we will discuss today. Dumebi, welcome. Hi, Dumebi. Good afternoon. Dumebi, good afternoon.
Good
Welcome on
afternoon.
today's masterclass.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just introduced you briefly to our guest. I'll allow you to do the full introduction of yourself and of iziFIN, and from there we start the discussion.
Brilliant. I'll try to keep the introduction short. I always like to talk a lot about myself. But my name is Dumebi Okwechime, Dr. Dumebi Okwechime. For those who are curious, I did a PhD in computer vision, which is an aspect of AI and machine learning that involves teaching cameras uh, and what it's seeing. So understanding images and videos. So I did a PhD there. My background is financial services. So after my PhD, I spent a lot of time in consulting, particularly in financial analytics. Worked for Wonga.com. That was my first exposure to automated credit assessment. Massively innovative. I was very, very blown away by what I learned in that company. I was then head of data science. Sorry, I was head of data science in Barclaycard UK, where my responsibility was to help the bank monetize data. So a good example of that for those who are interested in how you monetize data in that environment is basically, for instance, being able to allow people to borrow money or allow more people to borrow money by using data to unlock access. So in this case with Barclaycard, they allowed us to use Barclaycard data to be able to find customers who are more eligible to borrow money. After that, I moved to Nigeria. I was chief decision scientist at Renmoney, and then I was chief data officer at Kobo 360, at which point I then left and started iziFIN. So iziFIN, in a nutshell, is an embedded intelligence business, which basically means that we leverage data and AI to help companies grow and scale. Most of our customers are in the financial service sector. So we offer credit infrastructure. So we have banks using our credit scoring mechanism. We have banks using our BNPL framework. We have banks using our anomaly and fraud detection tools. And now we're branching into retail and e-commerce, bringing those tools to those sectors. So if you are running a business, any type of business, you can leverage the same tools and technologies as banks to be able to grow and allow your customers to get a more proficient experience. So yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for providing that snapshot. And I'll just immediately go into what I'm curious about. So you've described what iziFIN does. If thinking of me now, I'm a customer, for example, I'm one of your customers. What changes when I have an easy solution embedded in my system? What changes in my customer interactions? What changes in the suite of solutions I provide as a solution provider?
Hello.
Hi. So let me just recap my question. You got my question?
No,
So
yeah.
okay. So what changes when iziFIN take me for example as a solutions provider. I have my customers and iziFIN. I want to embed one of the easy suite of solutions in my business. What changes for me? What changes for me and what changes for my customers? Just to help us
Fantastic.
understand practically what easy does.
Absolutely. So when EasyFin comes into a business, what we find is that we then accelerate their plans to grow and scale. Businesses start to think differently. They start to realize that, hold on a second, operations is not optimal for growth. We have too many processes handled manually. We have too many decisions being made manually and too many bottlenecks. Now we want to put EasyFin in. We need to streamline this process so that we can speed things up. A good example, for instance, when we go into some banks who now want to start lending more digitally, we come in sometimes to do some prerequisites. They find out that there have been touch points during the customer loan experience that requires human intervention. So they bring us in early and then we fix that. We help them acquire data from different pipes that can now be streamlined into analytics and into model ready data that we can use. When we're retailers, they say, hey, I want to be able to allow these businesses buy my services or buy my products, which are very expensive. And then what we do then is say, great, let's create for you a storefront that you can manage. And now when people check out, they can check out with buy now, pay later. Customers say, hey, we want to be able to allow people to order from us online, on social media. What can you help us do? We do the same thing. We allow them to digitize their business and allow they have the ability to automate conversations on WhatsApp and social media to then create sales that leads to more revenue. So in a nutshell, businesses become more self-aware about how they can streamline operations and then look at how they can maximize that efficiency for them to be bigger and better.
Good, good. Thanks. That's I like things to be practical, like what goes on exactly in the day to day. So, how did you come about? How did you, for you, how did EasyFin go from strategy from how did EasyFin go from concept to
Mm,
strategy to implementation to something that a business can then take and embed? Can
thank you.
you?
Very good question. So, funny enough, how EasyFin started, obviously, as I was working with these businesses in Nigeria, a good example, as I said, is Rent Money and Kobo 360. And I was running teams that were providing major transformations and improvements to the operations. I realized that it's a very expensive affair to be able to hire a data lead and then them to hire a massive team. It wasn't something that every business can do. And I was often being asked by friends and colleagues and acquaintances, hey, how do I do this more? So I realized that there's a gap in the market where businesses need a bit more help to be able to do the same thing, but don't have the ability to pay for those kinds of resources. So that's how EasyFin started. And our first our first product, we were thinking about being API only. So being able to allow businesses to make decisions, having an easy fin API sitting in their back office, in their ecosystem. And that's where we started. But then we realized, well, hold on, only businesses that are tech enabled can leverage API. Some businesses don't even have that level of sophistication. So we built the API, we call that easy decisioning, and then we step back. We realized that some businesses need the whole loan infrastructure, customer digital onboarding, KYC and vetting, collections. So then we build the BNPL framework. Then realize businesses, hold on, businesses are worried about fraud, worried about false transactions. Then we took a step back. We built another infrastructure for anomaly detection. So what we then, and of course, as we started to grow and grow, we thought there's a gap between financial services and retailers, and then we built our digital storefront with our automated chatbot with the ability to do BNPL. So what we ended up doing is that we started to build around the demands that we're seeing. Some of our assumptions were made around how capable businesses were, and when we realized that they weren't that capable, we built in those layers of improvement. And as we were doing that, we realized that we're opening our products to more and more businesses. Now you don't have to have these things to use our services, and we're making it more accessible. So it was a exercise worth doing. What it means, by the way, for us, and that's why I call ourselves embedded intelligence business, that we're not a credit scoring business. We're not BNPL business. We're not a chatbot LLM business. We are embedded intelligence. Means that you can come to us for any of these services and also be exposed to more propositions. And we find that being that flexible means that we can speak to more businesses, different sectors, different sizes, different tech competency, and still be able to offer them product or services to help them grow and scale. So that's kind of how we call it easy ecosystem, how we started to build that ecosystem to tailor to many different businesses and their needs.
Thanks for that. So what I get is it didn't just start with, oh, we have this big basket of solutions. It was more an evolution in response to what you notice businesses needed in terms of intelligent usage of data that they have.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, and
Okay.
bear in mind, by the way, I mean, there were some things we built that was not successful. So we expanded certain areas and realized, okay, we got it wrong, and we put those things aside and we started to focus on. So it almost becomes like a trial and error experience. You start from there and you add layers,
Okay.
and of course, the layers that interesting. I just thought I want to add that. There are certain things in the past that we thought, okay, we got that wrong. Sometimes it comes back in the future, and someone says, hey, I need that, and then we find a way to bring that back in. So that happened to us with our anomaly detection product. Some businesses told us, oh, we have this fraud system that does this. We don't need anomaly detection, and all of a sudden, we get a lot of demand for that because businesses are maturing. They're realizing that rule systems are not enough. We actually need something a little bit more intelligent that can actually look at different layers of our business.
Okay.
So certain things, and that's what's great about us is that nothing we've done goes to waste. And if we see
Okay.
demand for it later, we can always bring it back in.
Okay, I'll put that a little bit on the side because I'd like to come back to it.
Sure.
Because sometimes we think we have the good strategy, we are doing things right, and so it will be successful. But I'm happy that you mentioned this here right now that not everything has worked out. But I'll come back to that later on how iziFIN has dealt with the things that didn't work out. So, you mentioned a short while ago about speaking to businesses. I'm curious, how do you communicate iziFIN's strategic value to businesses? You know, businesses typically have these strategy sessions, and then maybe they come up with a project, and then they look for a provider or a provider to provide the solution they seek or to address their problem and stuff. And they typically field a lot of providers, right? So how does iziFIN communicate its own strategic value to partner businesses?
Very good. So most of the time, you're absolutely right. There is some level of initial discussion internally, and the business kind of knows what it needs. And then they seek help and they find us. So a great example is in healthcare, for instance. The healthcare sector was struggling because, many people don't have the money up front to pay for healthcare, and most people don't have insurance, and they kept having these relationships with patients who are not settling their debt. So like, hey, do we need a means of assessing patients before we put ourselves into these commitments? So that's the mindset they were in before they met us. Then they meet us, and then we expose to them what we offer, which often aligns very well, at least at that initial level. So we say, hey, we have the infrastructure to allow you to get into to KYC vet and assess a patient's capability to pay you back before you allow them to get a treatment from you without on a finance arrangement with you. But you're right. So after that, there's still more that needs to be done. Funny enough, you find often what sometimes happens is that they need to get us in board meetings. Great, the stakeholder understands and appreciates what we can do, but that needs to be communicated to senior stakeholders. Now, what normally happens is that there's a relationship between the stakeholder and the board, and that's where it stops and it's done. But sometimes the stakeholder isn't experienced enough to answer some very deep questions. And so they bring us in. So sometimes we sit down in board meetings or we speak to very senior members of the business to break down some of these things into clearer instructions. So that sometimes happens. And we find that as being more of an awareness exercise. Some of the things we do is very uncommon in the market. and some of these leaders want to be very sure about what they're getting. So there's an awareness element that always happens with technology and innovation. And after that is done, you find that there's another layer that it then takes you into very intrinsic operational layers. As I mentioned before, some of these businesses have run things very manually, and now you're bringing in this innovation to make things go streamlined. So you always then have to have a conversation with operations or someone in operations, and you find that there's often a mismatch. Or we have this person that usually does this, we have this way that does that. And there becomes a negotiation, if you like, between the stakeholder, us, and the operations to fix that. So it's something, and it could be very simple things. It could be a case of, okay, when the customer meets you and they don't have the financing, give them your invoice, give them your pamphlet, and the pamphlet gives them the opportunity for a payment plan that contains these details. And that conversation needs to happen. It's so interesting that many people think that digitization also means onboarding customers digitally. So we scale quickly, but often enough, you always have to be involved in that discussion, particularly in Africa, because most businesses have been running things very manually. So we often find ourselves, after winning over the board, we have to win over the people on the ground in operations. And that's an important layer, probably, if not the most important layer. But then when that's done, then things kick off. And I just want to add as well that even when things kick off, there has to be some level of awareness, observation, and feedback. Because again, you're holding hands and you're getting businesses comfortable. But rest assured, when the right amount of effort is put in, it's done and you can step back. So we have, for instance, a hospital using our platform, and we have patients coming in using our BNPL service to get financing for their healthcare without our intervention. But it did take us a while to get us there. And that's just things that need to happen sometimes in our market.
Okay, so thanks. If I can summarize that, you get how you communicate the strategic value isn't just the communication, it's
Mhm.
communication at different levels, at the board
Absolutely.
level, at the operational level, and then some follow on hand holding
Exactly.
until your solution is successfully embedded in their processes.
Absolutely. Most of the time, it's just really communication and understanding as opposed to the technology or the strategy. You just have to bring every layer in the business aligned. And what's really important, what I learned especially, is that senior stakeholders won't do that. Unfortunately, they won't necessarily um, pass that down.
Cascade the information. So,
Thank you. You have to kind of be there as well. But things are changing, and what we're finding is that as our market becomes more mature and more tech competent, the less of this is required. But until that happens, it's always sensible to have that process in place to provide guidance.
okay. Thanks. So now I have a rather interesting question. Um, I knew of iziFIN when the buzz around AI and embedding AI into things was just starting. And it's I think that was maybe 3 years ago or not too long ago, but the gap between how AI was perceived then and now is has closed a lot. So I just want to ask, how has that so I can imagine 5 years ago, if you wanted to communicate the AI um, similarities of iziFIN to a business and the value they would get from that. Maybe it could have been more challenging, but now it's as if everybody's used to AI and everybody thinks so. AI is you can do things faster, easier, maybe with less human. I don't know. People have their understandings of AI. Has that helped your business? Has that helped iziFIN in communicating its strategic value? Do people's increased awareness of AI capabilities, has that increased awareness helped how iziFIN communicates its strategic value?
It has. It has. Not in the way you might think. So you're absolutely right. In the beginning, AI felt the feedback we were getting is that it's too early for us. Some businesses were seeing that, oh, it's too early. More important things for us to do. But bear in mind, you're talking about a market where most businesses don't invest sufficiently for technology. So you kind of imagine AI or not, this is just how they treated technology before. So, I always see AI as one level above digitization. So digitization would be ERP, CRM, and all in between. And then AI takes that information and takes it to the next level up. But really digitization and AI was kind of in one bucket. Fast forward, you're right, there became an increase in hype. And I say hype because what you see often on many sort of outlets is people talking about AI often, very often, but in practice haven't really applied it sufficiently in their business. Because there's a misunderstanding with AI. AI requires a partnership. AI is not always you put it in and it works. There has to be a relationship between the business and AI. So when businesses understand that there is some work to do to get AI functioning properly, you find that they then have to some of them are not ready. So you find a lot of people understanding AI is important, AI is valuable, but then when you sit down and look at their business, there's a lot of things that haven't been done yet for them to be able to benefit from AI. So what I find, just to answer your question, is that it's leading into more discussions, definitely. And sometimes the discussions are very straightforward. Okay, great. I can see how AI can help my business. Go for it. And sometimes it requires a little bit of preparation work beforehand. So, in fact, based on the back of that, we find ourselves offering somewhat of a consultancy service where we help businesses become AI ready. And that came out of that. When business saying, okay, I'm ready to use AI. Oh, I don't have the data. I don't have the competency within my team. I don't have this. I don't have that. And as experienced a business in AI, we help them fill in those gaps to get them ready. So I would say that bridge service is definitely started to grow. And the good news about that is we're now seeing businesses pass that and enter into, yes, let's start using these AI products, digital products, and let's start growing. So it's part of that maturity process. So it's happening. It's happening as we speak. We expect it to happen a lot better and faster as we go. But right now we are really at that early stage. It's really exciting times.
Thank you very much for bringing for um, giving me the behind the hype perspective. That's very useful. Thank you. So now coming to business strategy and culture. There's this anecdote that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Can you give can you share a little bit about the culture at iziFIN and how your company, which is still relatively young, prevents culture from eating strategy for breakfast?
Well, first it helps that we're not a very big team. So it'll be rare to find a company proficient in AI and technology to be a large team anyway. So it helps that we're a small team. It also helps that we've been lucky enough to hire into our business very strong and competent data and AI practitioners. So we're very lucky to have the team that we have. And what really helps is that everyone understands, right? Everyone understands that AI is new, AI is up and coming, but AI is hard at the moment because it's still very early. And because of that understanding, we're all kind of working towards pushing our products in a way that the market is ready for. And what I mean by that is it often requires us to put layers within our services to accommodate businesses in Nigeria who are almost ready and to take AI. So the culture really is around innovation. We try to explain to our people that we're doing something very innovative, right? Which means it's not going to be easy. We're not just going to be having businesses falling at our feet. It means a bit of work on our side, a bit of a responsibility to prepare businesses, a bit of responsibility to be part of the operation, be part of the discussions. But the eventual destination is to support Nigeria and Africa until we're ready to have that streamlined automation of acquiring businesses and growing. But for now, we are responsible for educating, onboarding, preparing businesses to then use our services, and when they are ready, supporting them to grow and scale it. So that's kind of the mindset we all have as a business, and it's been very very effective. It means that when we see things not work according to plan, we iterate and we improve and change. So we're very used to that. Happens often. We see that when businesses misunderstand about what we do, we're able to really explain it to them and even go the extra mile as to do extra training, extra visits, extra work. Because it's not just about growing and scaling, it's about supporting the ecosystem. Even if companies don't use our services, the fact that you understand about AI and they want to acquire it from somewhere supports us as well. It helps the market grow, helps us grow, and help other businesses generate that awareness that eventually might be our customers. So I guess if I was to summarize that, the culture that we base on is that we are pushing a technology innovation in the market that is still very young, but we are there supporting that growth of that ecosystem. And we're building things that businesses, if not already, can see. Eventually, will see the importance and value, and of course, everything in between all of that. Hope that answers your question.
So if I
But
was to ask someone, not you, someone else in the
yeah,
company, they would say, "Oh, ours is our company culture is one of innovation, where we know we're at the leading edge of AI adoption in Nigeria." Would that be correct?
right. That's absolutely right. That's exactly right. I wouldn't want to. I didn't want to position it that way because many AI
That's
companies are positioning it.
that's what I get.
But that's absolutely right. And that I want to just. I think the point I wanted to also make clear is that that requires a level of responsibility, and responsibility is awareness and support. As if you're leading something, you have to also be responsible for how well it's received and how well it's used. I mean, just to be clear, some businesses, and I've taken over projects, some businesses who are on the leading edge that unfortunately don't have good interaction with clients can actually give people a very bad impression about where AI and data is going. So it's important that we don't have those bad experiences. It's important that people understand exactly what it can do and what it can't do. The awareness part is very important. So there's some responsibility when you're in that level of innovation and you're pushing that to the market, and you're often the first people talk to about AI, or the first time an employee has seen anything that you built ever in Nigeria. And so that comes with a level of responsibility as well. So the team also sees that and gets that. And I think that's one of the things that people really like about working for us, and that they know that they do something that's very new and will soon become commonplace. But for now, it's something that we have to push and own as part of our business.
Okay, thanks for that. So that question was focused on employees, and we all know there are many stakeholders in a company.
Yeah.
For example, you have a board, you have investors. How do you communicate that strategy, your strategy, to them to ensure continuous buy-in? Because stakeholder managing stakeholders sometimes is more challenging than actually pushing to customers, or making sure the customer promise is delivered. It's very important to keep stakeholders aligned, and we all know that. How does iziFIN do that, or how has iziFIN been doing that in the past, and what lessons from that would you like to share?
So when you say stakeholders, do you mean like board members and things like
So
that?
board members, investors, large
Okay.
customers, for example, who have
Yeah.
who have long-standing partnerships and stuff like that.
Got it. Got it. It's actually easier than you might think. The good news is that we also have board members that are very technology competent. So they have a very, very realistic view about the. So yeah,
Hi, maybe we lost you for a little bit there. If you can restart your answer.
sure. No problem. As I said, it's easier than you think. Our board members, full of data practitioners, technology practitioners who understand realistically where the market is and where we're going. And in fact, they become, shoulders to cry on. They become very strong strategic advisors. And I think what's great is they also have that innovation mindset. So we're always trying to invent new and clever ways to grow and scale. So board level is very easy. The same. We actually been very fortunate that we have a very reasonable group of investors. One thing that you want when you're a technology company, particularly a SaaS company like ours, particularly a SaaS company originating from Africa, is that you need a investor that are patient. Yeah. Where our market is not mature enough for these products and technology to grow particularly fast, but there are markers that show that progress is being made. And some of those markers are not always revenue markers, by the way. It doesn't necessarily show into big numbers and big growth, but perhaps could be things like the level of conversations you're having, level of flexibility your products are, the areas that your products are now opening into. And those things we're doing very well. And we find our investors are actually very proud of what we've been able to achieve. And so the great things that we're aligned from that perspective. You kind of have to have a medium to long term view about what we're trying to do. And you have to kind of look at it as we're entering into the opportunity as it becomes mature. So we're already ready. And that's kind of where we are going. And that's what investors believe in we're doing. So it's really rewarding and it's really fortunate that we have that. From long-standing businesses as well, the same. We find that we have, particularly those who are used our services very early on, they almost feel like they're partners in a way because they've helped us grow some of these products. And so, what we're very comfortable with doing is getting feedback from these businesses and making improvements and iterations. We obviously want to be careful that we don't over customize for a client. But so when we do get feedback, we have to make sure that it's feedback that can be translated into other prospects as well. And most of the time, it is the case. So how we sort of cater to stakeholders that are long-standing enterprise or big clients is from our ability to listen to their feedback and make those improvements for them as quickly as we can, and which is what we always do. And in fact, a good example of that is our a BNPL product that led into our digital storefront and led into BNPL as a service from a digital storefront perspective, because that was feedback we got from our partners. Hey, great, we can do this, but we don't want to be using these sort of WordPress. We want to have our own website. We want to be able to do this. And so we're able to find very generic ways to expand those offerings and provide it to them and other businesses as well. So I think if I was to summarize that response, um, is about making sure all these stakeholders understand the market that you're dealing with, understand that you have to be patient, and get evidence enough from you that you can iterate and improve as the market shifts your product and your ideas. If, for instance, we stayed as just API based only and we're just pushing that product as hard as we could, it wouldn't make any sense and we wouldn't still be here. But what we're able to do to survive is to show that flexibility to evolve our products and still make it relevant within the whole ecosystem. I think that's one thing that has given us great feedback from our stakeholders.
Thanks a lot. So I get from you having the right board members, the right in the sense of they understand what you're doing from a technical perspective, and then they are patient enough to let you grow, knowing that you're leading the market, so to speak, and then on your part, you show the right markers to the stakeholders to as proof and to keep their trust in you. And then from that's focusing on the board now. And then from partners, you take their feedback and let them know that you've incorporated their feedback, and that is a way to keep them aligned
Good.
as stakeholders. If I
Absolutely.
can.
Absolutely.
Good. Thanks for sharing that. So now going back to the customer side, when you get a potential customer that says, yes, iziFIN solution aligns with our strategy, but we can do it ourselves. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one that we can do it ourselves. It's what a lot of technology companies in Nigeria struggle with. And I think it comes from a very long-standing idea that if we have the money, why don't we just build it? I don't want to generalize, but you get this often from big banks because big banks have a lot of money and they look at it and think, hey, we can build this ourselves. I often see that as well as an awareness exercise. It's not always a money play, it's time. You find that I've seen banks go as far as hiring out a full tech team, data team, to get to level of competency that we have in decisioning. And you tell yourself, well, it's going to take you at least 12 months to get there, and you're going to be spending a lot of money. And what generally tends to happen is that they don't get the outcomes they want quickly enough, and it starts to cost a lot. But if you step back and realize you can still get there, but at least between the next 12 months, you're still growing using that technology and you can learn from it. And then when you're ready and with the right patience and time, take it on yourself. But yeah, it's a challenge that we see often. And what we try to do in those situations is really show the value that we're bringing, the fact that the speed to market, the simplicity of setup, the ease of use, and there's still nothing stopping you from doing this yourself. But of course, it doesn't have to become a priority right now. And we're actually noticing that banks are and other companies are becoming more receptive to that. The thing is a very realistic perspective that lacks sometimes. And people say, "Oh, we'll just do it ourselves." And we find that certain banks still have that mindset, so we just wait until to see if we can build our relationship with them later. But certain banks are like, "Yeah, we have a tech team, but we're focused too much on what we're doing, focused too much on our core business. This is an area we want to grow into. You have it already. Let's do partnership." So we're seeing that conversation moving along more easily and quickly. So I came from the background, particularly when I was working in Barclaycard, where we had, as head of data science, I had a responsibility of looking at 30 prototypes or POCs a month. The bank was really encouraging us to talk to smaller businesses that had services that we might need and to see which one brings us value. And that's really the right mindset, because you never know whether this company there or that opportunity there could unlock great value, which you can then learn from and then apply later on. So I guess the good news is that the mindset is changing. The way we handle that now is really just awareness of our value proposition, particularly on speed and cost, and hopefully businesses see the value, or if they don't, we give them time, and sometimes they come back and they ask us to help, or sometimes they continue on that direction and try to do it on their own.
Thanks. I was noting down that this decision to build or buy is not always a money play. You know in your experience that it's also a time play, and
Absolutely.
you share that with them. We have a post here. Yes, global multinationals also struggle with the balance between insourcing and outsourcing, and typically swing back and forth. Yes, to underscore that it's not always a money play. There's time involved, and yeah, maybe stakeholder interests also. So I will go back to a question we put on ice initially, which is dealing with the things that do not go to plan. So we have how has so my question is how can you give us an example of how iziFIN has dealt with a strategic move that did not go according to plan?
Yeah, it's something that we experience very often, especially in the beginning. Um, the market was teaching us, and we didn't have anyone in the market that we could learn from. We had to kind of learn from our own. And what we noticed is that there's really no shortcuts around that. I cannot sit down with myself, with my board members, with my team, and strategize around not making mistakes. It's bound to happen. And so we find that the best thing for us to do is do what we believe is best. And when it doesn't work out, we quickly review, iterate, and improve. The painful part of this process is that sometimes you lose customers in that process, and it's not. I'll give a great example. We thought that from the BNPL perspective, it might be good at creating customized apps, for instance. So we can package an app in a way that you can deploy very quickly, and that becomes something you can then use to deal with customers. But we found that that was just too heavy for many businesses to deal with. And as we start to get them onboarded and get them used to using these services, it just wasn't fitting. And of course the stakeholder saw that, pulls out, and at that point it's very difficult to then counter that with another option. And unfortunately you may lose that stakeholder permanently. But that's just the sacrifice one makes with iterating and improving. But what that meant for us was we learned from that and we changed, and then we acquired a bigger client later on, and now we're a bit more experienced. So what we often do is when we find something doesn't work, we try something else and we push that back in the market, and that doesn't work. We try something else, push it back in the market. what we try not to do is push something out that is not complete from an idea perspective. So we push out what we believe is the best thing we can do. We then learn from the business if it's working or not. And sometimes it may even be that business. A good example, as I told you before, is once we created an anomaly detection product for a payments company, and it did everything they wanted it to do, but they didn't use it. We onboarded them, we got it ready, they just weren't using it. And what's even more difficult is that they didn't give us feedback why. So there could be some operational and internal problems there. But so we pulled back and felt, that may not be the market for our systems. But then, of course, later on, we found an even bigger payment company. This time, they had cross-border payment issues, and we said, "Hey, we have this already. Would you be interested?" And like, yeah, exactly what we need. And then, boom, that took off. So sometimes it may not even be failure from our perspective. Could just be failure on the business side that we can't see. So we sometimes are a bit sensitive to that as well. We shouldn't make big decisions because of one failure. It could just be something else. So there's a balance that you must strike between getting feedback and seeing how things perform and iterating and improving. And sometimes it could even be unrelated to products. It could be pricing. It could be quite difficult to explain pricing to businesses that don't often invest in innovation. And so you have to be very sensitive on the price point when you're dealing with customers, or at least design the pricing in a way that is not prohibitive or can be broken down into smaller chunks. So we've learned how to do that. And again, sometimes you present what seems to be reasonable pricing and it comes as, oh wow, more expensive than I thought. And then you go back with a counter offer and you don't always win them back because they think that you're too expensive. And of course, that feedback comes back to us, and we then find out clever ways to make our pricing a lot more adjustable and acceptable. Because sometimes pricing is a culture thing as well. So I guess to summarize my answer, is really iterating and as quickly as you can, not taking it personal, not realize it's not necessarily always on your side. It could also be on the customer side, but still having that ability to then iterate and provide an alternative, and then try that again and see how that goes. But it's probably the hardest part of our business, sort of getting that feedback and being able to deal with it and use it.
Okay, good, good. And I noted that down when you said you cannot strategize around making mistakes and not
Yeah,
taking it personal when something does not work as intended. That's very
yeah.
good learning. Thank you. So we're nearing the end. I want to ask about the ecosystem in general. If you could quickly share with us a few things you're optimistic about in the Nigerian fintech ecosystem.
Mm,
Fin or tech, I think you sit across both, so you can give
mhm.
us a good a few notes, things to be optimistic about as you see it in this year, 2026.
Fantastic. I mean, as I mentioned before, the understanding of data and AI is growing. And we're seeing more businesses calling for help to tidy up their data housekeeping or tidy up their digitization process so that they can actually start to grow and scale. And that's all excellent signs. So I see the fintech ecosystem becoming more receptive to technology and innovation. I also see the fintech ecosystem being more receptive to help and not always feeling like they need to build things themselves. I mean, and that has been very good. From the technology side as well, I think financial services is different because it's a much more mature and bigger market. So there's definitely growth happening there. In fact, most of our services around data services come from financial services because they're bigger and they have bigger tasks to become more digital and more efficient. But on the retail side, we're seeing changes too. So SMEs who are running small businesses, selling goods, e-commerce, we're finding them having a voice and reaching out more now. They're seeing that it's smart for us to invest in technology because we want to be able to do and sell more. And that's where we want it to be. That's really where most of the Nigeria ecosystem is from, small, medium-sized enterprises. That makes up most of the market. And as they are driving things and growing, it shows that the ecosystem is getting ready and is more proficient and prepared. So the great thing is, a great thing about what we've done is that we build products that are flexible. We build products that have more flexible pricing arrangements, and we build products that provide flexibility within the ecosystem. So if we meet a business that says, "Hey, I need an ERP to manage my products and my inventory," we have that. great. I now want to be able to publish this on a storefront that can be accessed on WhatsApp. We can then do that. I now want to be able to offer buy now, pay later for customers who want to buy expensive goods. We can now do that. I also want to be able to monitor all of my transactions and make sure nothing funny is happening. We can now do that. I want to
Okay.
be able to, so the great thing is, with that maturity that's coming, we are now able to provide flex services based on their needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I get from that the market's understanding of AI and its capabilities is increasing, and then also there's more help seeking. SMEs and other companies are more prone, are more inclined now to seek for help. They are not trying as before to do everything on their own, which I think is good for ecosystem growth. So, lastly, to wrap up, please share with us one lesson that the Nigerian business community can take away from iziFIN on strategizing your vision. So
One, yeah,
we've talked a lot about communicating this strategy and the vision to customers, to stakeholders. I think there's a lot to share there. But if you could just um,
summarize.
summarize one key thing you would like to share with other businesses on strategizing the vision.
The most successful businesses I've seen in Nigeria are the ones that are the most patient. So I would say patience is key. There used to be a mindset, and I shared it, where if you're not achieving this by year one or by year two, your business is not successful, and that is so wrong. It can take time, not just to understand the customer, but to see the ecosystem mature and to be ready. And so I implore any business that is at the moment, whatever business you're doing, and it's difficult, suffice you're listening and you have the ability to iterate, then you need to be patient, because that is the only way you can be successful, particularly when providing services in our market. So patience is key, and I'll sort of recommend all businesses to have a very long-term perspective on how they intend to grow and scale.
Thank you very much for wrapping it up nicely and for emphasizing on patience. Patience is not one of the sexiest words, if I can use that word, one of the coolest words in the tech world, right? We want to move fast and break things. But I'm happy you're sharing it as someone who's been in the business on the corporate side and now in your own firm, emphasizing that patience is key when providing services in the market, especially in a market like ours, Nigeria. So thank you
Absolutely.
very much, Dr. Dumebi. Thank you for sharing your experience, your time. This has been super valuable to me, and I think it's been valuable to our audience. And thank you very much. We hope to bring you back, hopefully on another topic, maybe something not so strategy related now, something else, growth, capital, governance will be an interesting one. But thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, thank you, our dear audience, for staying with us. We hope you have learned one or two things that we've been able to, share with you. Dr. Maybe shared a lot about his business experience, which, in my view, is very practical from someone deploying solutions live in the market. So I took a lot of notes. I found a lot of the things he said very, very, very useful. So, thank you. To wrap up now, I would like to bring you back to our scale framework. Remember at the beginning, we said that the scale framework is an acronym for um, SCALE, and today we focused on strategize your vision, which is the S, and which is why our discussion followed the which is why our discussion was focused mostly around strategy, visioning it, discussing with clients about their own strategy, the stakeholder engagement strategy, communicating the strategy, and all the things we discussed today. So, thank you. And remember, the scale framework, the pillars of the scale framework, they are not linear, they are interconnected because we're talking about strategy. doesn't mean that we cannot leverage governance as needed to optimize the business or accelerate our growth with sustainable capital, so to speak. So these pillars are interrelated. I invite you to scan the QR code and take our skill scorecard as a business owner, as a business leader, just to position yourself on the maturity as a business owner this year. And then lastly, we invite you, as always, to read the book Afro Optimism Unleashed. Everything we discuss about the scale framework is in that book, including case studies that can help you explore each pillar in depth. And we invite you, following that, to connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, on YouTube. There are lots of videos of how we've been exchanging with fellow business owners on these topics. Feel free to drop us an email, drop a line on our channel, LinkedIn posts and YouTube channels. We are responsive. We will speak with you. We'll address your questions. Thank you for joining us today, and we remain ZER Consulting Africa, and we look forward to hosting you, to having you on our next masterclass session. Thank you.